Hello students, welcome to the daily newspaper analysis, and I am your educator Prithviraj Singh, and we'll be discussing today the important news articles of 4th of February 2022. Let us begin with the first slide. Now students, today in the Hindu newspaper, we have these articles which are of importance. The Indian diplomats to boycott Beijing Games, right? So the Winter Olympics, which are scheduled to take place from 8th of February this year in Beijing. I'm talking about the Winter Olympics. The Indian diplomats are boycotting it. So we'll understand the topic. Similarly, India is also celebrating 100 years of Bhimsen Joshi, a musician. Then there is a India-Sri Lanka issue. Chandrayaan III is being set to launch in August. And editorial analysis where we will be discussing about India-China relation. With the first news. Now students, as you can see on the screen, Indian diplomats have registered their boycott against the Winter Olympics, which are scheduled to be held in the month of February, this month, from 8th of February onwards in China at Beijing, right? Now the reason that they are citing is that the torch bearing ceremony, the inauguration ceremony, the torch bearer is one of the army generals of PLA, right? People Liberations Army, that is the army of China, right? And we know that PLA was involved in the Galwan attacks of last year, Galwan 2020 clashes, right? In the last year, right, just before pandemic. So in the June 2020 Galwan clashes around the pandemic, India was heavily involved against China at Galwan Valley, and therefore and you know, Chinese army general has been involved, and the China has decided that he would be leading the torch, right? He would be the torch bearer for the Winter Olympics. So India has registered its protest and it has boycotted the Winter Olympics, right? Now the word, when I say boycott doesn't mean that India would not be sending its sports contingent or the sports person to China or to participate in the Winter Olympics, but it is just that no Indian government official, be it the diplomats or any representative of the government, so they won't be going to the Beijing Olympics, right? So they won't go to participate in the Beijing Olympics, right? Whereas definitely the sports contingent would definitely go, right? Now India, in this sense, for the first time in its history, has objected any Olympic game, right? So India has for the first time has diplomatically boycott the Olympic games. And before I jump into the Winter Olympics, let us discuss a bit of about Indian Olympics Committee. Students, Olympic Games are an international sports event and they are being conducted every 4 years, right? So we have Summer Olympics as well as Winter Olympics. You all know that the Summer Olympics was being held in the year 2020 in Tokyo, Japan, and the Winter Olympics are being scheduled to be held in this year 2022 at Beijing, right? And if the examiner asks you that when are the next Summer Olympics be held, so the answer would be Paris, France, right? So the next Summer Olympics would be held in the year 2024 and they'll be conducted at Paris. I'm talking about the Summer Olympics, right? Now if I talk about the Winter Olympics, this time they'll be held in Beijing, China, and after 4 years, right, that means in the year 2026 they would be held in Italy, right? Now the committee which actually regulates the Olympics is by the name Olympics Committee, and it is I would say a international non-government organization, INGO, and it came into being in the year 1894. The objectives of IOC is definitely to conduct the Olympics, to decide the venue, the time, which year, right? And also it sets the rules and regulation for the conduct of the Olympics. Now as far as the Winter Olympics are concerned, let us discuss a bit of details about 2022 Winter Olympics. Now students, as you can see on the screen, the emblem of Beijing 2022 and the mascot, right? Now Winter Olympics, the motto for Winter Olympics 2022 is together for a shared future. Students, many examinations in our country do ask about the motto, the mascot, and the emblem, right? So we must keep in mind the motto of Winter Olympics is together for a shared future. But sadly, China has done, a catastrophe, and there are allegations that it is a bio war, but they talk about shared future. Certainly, ironically, it is a statement which doesn't hold good for China, doesn't hold true for China. Any which ways, the motto is together for a shared future, and the first Winter Olympics games in China. So it is for the first time that China students is hosting the Winter Olympics, although China has also hosted Summer Olympics, right? And you would be knowing that it took place in the year 2008. In this sense, till date, China has hosted 2 Olympic games, one summer, and now they are hosting the Winter Olympics, right? So the second overall Olympics in China, and the last of the 3 consecutive Olympics in East Asia, right? So the 3 consecutive Olympics, are being held in East Asia. That is a very good part. East Asia is being given importance. So China is hosting Winter Olympics. Japan, we had Summer Olympics in the year 2020, and in South Korea again there was the Olympic Games. So the East Asia has hosted 3 consecutive Olympics. The emblem which you can see on the screen looks good. It's fascinating. Definitely the Olympic, you have 5 rings, and the emblem has a element of China flag also, and it is by the name Winter Dream, right? So the emblem is Winter Dream Beijing 2022. And if I talk about the official mascot, right, official mascot is Bing Duen Duen. So Bing Duen Duen is the official mascot of the Winter Olympics. Bing in China means ice, and ice symbolizes purity. Ice symbolizes purity, and purity, and at the same time, Duen Duen is a symbol of being robust, being lively, right? It is a symbol of a child, right? So as children are lively, they are robust, they are very much energetic. So that is the reason why they have selected this as their mascot. So Bing Duen Duen means ice, and Duen Duen means energy, something which is robust, something it is related to child, right? So therefore and definitely they have also drawn a dress of an astronaut, right? And this symbolizes an energy. It embraces the new technologies and create new possibilities, right? So the dress of the astronaut, covering the Bing, is actually symbolizes the new energy or the new possibilities, the technologies, right? So Bing student is the name given for ice, right? So this is the official mascot, Bing Duen Duen, right? Now as far as because in the Olympics you also have Paralympics, right? Paralympics are the Olympic games for the specially abled persons, right? And for the Paralympics, Winter Olympics, right, the official mascot is Shui Ron Ron. So here you have Shui Ron Ron. So of Shui Ron Ron is the mascot or official mascot for the Winter Paralympics, right? I hope it is clear, students. Now it is not India, students. Many countries have registered their protest, and many countries are boycotting the Winter Olympics to be conducted in Beijing because of many reasons. Definitely, China is being infamous for the human rights atrocities, human rights violations, right? It is a communist nation, and secondly, there are also some Muslim minorities in Chinese Xinjiang province, and they are being persecuted, they are being ghettoized, and they are being sent to concentration camps. Yes, I'm talking about Uyghur community Muslims, right? So there have been genocides against Uyghur minorities and human rights abuses in China. That is the reason why many countries across the world, including United States and many European countries, are boycotting the Winter Olympics. As you can see on the screen, India has definitely, although India was actually supporting the Winter Olympics, but since they have fielded the Galwan commander, PLA commander, as a torchbearer, then it has registered its boycott. Now the countries which have registered their boycott, are United States, UK, Canada, Australia, Japan, so on and so forth. Similarly, Austria, Sweden have also registered their boycott due to COVID-19 protocols. Correct. So this is all about the Winter Olympics. Very, very important from the exam perspective. Every student should have a know-how about the same. Now let us move to the next news. Now students, on the screen you can see India will be celebrating 100 years birth anniversary of a very famous singer, Pandit Bhim Sen Joshi. Now Pandit Bhim Sen Joshi, so was born in the month of February, the 4th of February in the year 1922. So this year would be, 2022 would be marking his 100th birth anniversary, right? So government is planning to celebrate the 100th birth anniversary of Pandit Bhim Sen Joshi. And mind you, he was born in Karnataka, and he was very much influenced right in his childhood, by the music of Kirana Gharana, right? So he was influenced by Ustad Abdul Karim Khan from in a very early age, right? And at the age of 11 years, he left his home and he ran away from his home in search of a guru, right? And he went to North India and he found, he spent his good 3 years in North India, looking for the music in Lucknow, Gwalior and Rampur. So he was looking for a teacher, a music teacher, and finally he got one. And if I talk about his contribution to Indian music, definitely he is the first or the foremost name in Hindustani classical music. And he is famous for perfecting the khayal, right? So khayal is a form of Hindustani classical music, right? So whenever the question comes about Pandit Bhim Sen Joshi, the first thing that should come to your mind is Hindustani classical music, right? And he is being famous for perfecting, khayal, which is a form of a Hindustani classical music, right? He's also very famous for the devotional song or the bhakti song. He has sung many bhajans, right, in Kannada, Hindi and many other languages, right? And he was also a versatile singer of Kannada Dasa Krithis, right? So it is a music tradition which is being followed in various temples in Karnataka, right? And very importantly, student, Pandit Bhim Sen Joshi was very famous for a very popular song, Mile Sur Mera Tumhara, right? So you probably would be knowing whenever it was telecasted in Delhi Doordarshan TV, the song was always there, right? Mile Sur Mera Tumhara. So it symbolizes the unity of the country, right? And Pandit Bhim Sen Joshi became very popular, very famous after this song, Mile Sur Mera Tumhara. Now, as far as his recognitions and awards are concerned, he was a recipient of Bharat Ratna in the year 2008, right? And he was conferred with India's highest civilian award, right? So Bharat Ratna is India's highest civilian award, and he got it in the year 2008. Also, he was conferred with Padma Vibhushan. Padma Vibhushan, students, is India's second highest civilian award, and he was conferred with the same in the year 1999. And the other civilian awards which he received were Padma Bhushan and Padma Shri, right? So very importantly, students, you must all be clear about Bharat Ratna and Padma Vibhushan. Padma Vibhushan is the second highest civilian award, and the highest civilian award in India is Bharat Ratna, right? So Bharat Ratna is the highest civilian award in India, right? And he got it in the year 2008. So that's all about Pandit Bhim Sen Joshi, and India would be celebrating his 100th birth anniversary. Let us move to the next news. Very important article, students, came in the Hindu newspaper today. Now this article talks about the fishermen issue, right? Many Indian fishermen are being caught by the Sri Lankan Navy, and they are being kept behind the bars, right? Because the Sri Lankan government says that they have crossed the international maritime line, a line which divides the territorial waters of the two countries. See, students, fishermen know no boundary, because international maritime boundary is just an imaginary line, right? So fishermen do unknowingly cross that line and then land up in trouble. Now, in order to understand this issue, let us understand the article. Jaffna fishermen holding protests hold protest opposing Indian trawlings. Now Jaffna is the northern province of Sri Lanka, right? The northern province of Sri Lanka is called as Jaffna, and the fishermen there are holding protest opposing the Indian trawlings. Now student, trawling means a mechanism wherein the fishermen uses the nets and they dip down into the water, and in this way they catch the fishes. Now I'll explain it by a slide, by an image. See, let us understand the impacts of bottom trawling before and after. Now this is a ship and the fishermen are looking to catch fishes, right, and the other resources like crabs, etc., and all the marine resources, right? So this is a picture before trawling. Trawling is catching the fishes, right? So this is a picture before trawling, right? And once the trawling is being done, that means they have caught the fishes. This happens, right? So there is a huge difference between this image and this image. That means along with the fishes, they have also cleaned up and exploited the marine aquaculture, right? So all the herbs and all the aquaculture, all the marine ecosystem is being completely destroyed by the nets, because along with the net all other ecosystem is also being taken up, right? So as you can see, they have disrupted the biogeochemical cycles and compounding eutrophication, correct? And in this way, by bottom trawling, they have damaged the sea floor, right? The sea floor has been damaged, the habitat has been completely damaged, leading to changes in fish distribution, correct? And this has also reduced the carbon sequestration rates. So it is a threat to the biodiversity, it is a threat to the marine ecosystem, and so many people, even in India, environmental conservatists, they are saying that bottom trawling must be stopped. And mind you, Sri Lankan government has clearly banned bottom trawling. So bottom trawling is being banned by the Sri Lankan government, but still because we don't have any alternate technology, or possibly the fishermen are not able to access the alternate technology, so that is the reason why they are still using the bottom trawling. I hope it is clear. Now the issue is, in order to understand the issue, we must go back to the history. Now student, the gulf that separates India and Sri Lanka is called as Gulf of Mannar, and definitely Gulf of Mannar connects Indian Ocean with the Bay of Bengal. Now the narrow passage of water between Sri Lanka's northern province, which is Jaffna, and Indian southern province is called as Park Bay, and Park Bay is a part of Park Strait, correct? Now Park Bay is famous for its shallow waters, and in shallow waters you will be having a very good catch of fishes, right? So there will be good number of fishes available in the shallow waters, right? So therefore it is a place wherein the Indian fishermen go in this area to catch the fishes, right? So they explore this area to catch the fishes, correct? So this area is being used to catch the fishes, right? And unknowingly they cross the international maritime line, and thereby entering into conflicts. Similarly students, you can also see from this image, this is the Indian I would say mainland, and this is part of Tamil Nadu, and here you have the northern province of Sri Lanka, Jaffna, and you see here you have Park Bay, right? Park Bay. Now the name Park is being used before a British official, right? Now here there are one island which is very much disputed, which we'll be going to discuss in the coming slide, right? So this is the area which is being used for catching of fishes, right? Let us move to the next slide. Now the issue is Kalathivu Island. So from the last image you can connect that in the Park Strait there is an island called as Kalathivu Island. Now it is a disputed island, right? Now let us understand the issue. Now if I talk about, give the historical background of Kalathivu Island, students, it is an uninhabited offshore island in the Park Strait, right? That means no human beings live there, and originally it was being owned by the king of Ramnath, right? So Ramnath, there was a king and he was actually owning in the present day Ramanathpuram. Earlier it was called as Ramanath. So the king of Ramnath was actually owning Kalathivu Island, right? And Britishers gave joint rights. So that means during the Britishers' time, it was jointly administered by India and Sri Lanka. So there was no such conflict, no such issue, right? Because it was jointly administered by India and Sri Lanka, right? And generally this island is being used by the fishermen to dry their nets which they use for catching the fishes. Now in the early 20th century onwards, Sri Lanka started claiming the territorial ownership of Kalathivu Island, right? So they started claiming their ownership over the Kalathivu Island. And after independence in 1974, when Indira Gandhi was the prime minister of the country, they signed an agreement, a joint agreement was being signed between India and Sri Lanka, and in this agreement Kalathivu Island was being given to Sri Lanka, right, without actually taking the consideration of the southern states in India, right? So that is the reason why southern states like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, etc., they've registered their protest against the central government that they have done a big mistake and they have not consulted the southern states before giving Kalathivu to Sri Lanka, right? So Indira Gandhi government gave Kalathivu Island to Sri Lanka, or the ownership of Kalathivu Island to Sri Lanka, without actually taking the consent of the southern states, right? So southern states are still unhappy about this agreement. They don't accept it. They have registered their protest, and even the fishermen cross there, they go to Kalathivu. And just so this happened in the year 1974. This is a very important year which actually marks the ceding of the Kalathivu Island to Sri Lanka. Just after 2 years, students, India further gave the fishing rights in the region to Sri Lanka, right? So now we have nothing left, right? That means the ownership of Kalathivu is being given to Sri Lanka, and after 2 years, that is in the year 1976, even the fishing rights were also being given to Sri Lanka, correct? Now recently, students, the issue has always surfaced the headlines. In December 2021, just 2 months back, 43 fishermen of Tamil Nadu were arrested and 6 boats were being seized by Sri Lanka, by Sri Lankan Navy, right? So in total, I would say 284 Indian fishermen are being arrested by Sri Lanka in 2019 and 2020, right? So total 284 Indian fishermen have already been being arrested by the Sri Lankan Navy. And just in the year 2020, there was a joint working group. A joint working group was being formed, and there was a 4th meeting of the India-Sri Lanka joint working group on fisheries. So joint working group was already formed to resolve the the territorial claims and these issues, maritime issues. But a 4th virtual conference, 4th meeting was being held, and it was being held through a virtual mode in the year 2020, right? So bottom traveling is nothing but it is a fishing practice that herds and captures the target species like ground fishes, crabs, etc. by towing a net along the ocean floor, right, which we have discussed in our previous slide. Now students, in the year 1976, just 2 years after the 1974 agreement took place, there was an exchange of letters between India and Sri Lanka. And mind you, 1986 was also the time when internal emergency was being imposed in our country by Indira Gandhi government. And the 1974 and 76 treaties were signed between 2 countries to demarcate international maritime boundary line. Very, very important, students. So 1974 and 76, the treaties were being signed to demarcate the international maritime boundary line. IMBL is basically a international agreement wherein the countries would be knowing their territorial waters, and it is being presumed that you would not be crossing your international maritime boundary line, right? Now the treaties also ended up marking the Park Strait connecting India and Sri Lanka a 2-nation pond. Now this is a concept in international relations, student, a 2-nation pond, right? And in this way, no third party can interfere between any dispute between India and Sri Lanka. And 2-nation pond theory comes from United Nations Convention on the Laws of Sea, right? So UNCLOS, UN clause, or United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, right? Now simply put, the bilateral agreement bans international fishing and shipping, right? So that means the Sri Lanka cannot enter in our maritime boundary, and even Indian fishermen cannot cross the international maritime boundary line. Now despite signing the maritime boundary agreements, fishermen communities time and again have of both the countries continue their fishing in the Park Bay. It's peacefully, until Elam War broke out in 1983. So although the international maritime boundary line was there, but they were, you know, crisscrossing the boundaries because of some friendly relations and friendly gestures shared between the fishermen of the two countries. But when the Elam War broke out, Tamil Elam, right, Litte, broke out in the year 1983, and when it ended in the year 2009, the Sri Lankan fishermen have been raising this objection to Indian fishermen that when they are fishing in their waters, right? And therefore India and Sri Lanka have set up a joint working group, right, to find a mechanism to resolve this issue, right? Now the small island of Kalathivu that we discussed, student, actually sadly and unfortunately it has, you know, it has fallen to the other side of the international maritime boundary line, right? So if there is an international maritime boundary line, I would again go to my previous slide. So Kalathivu Island has been fallen on the, I would say, east side, right, of the international maritime boundary line, and it is being today administered by Sri Lanka, right? But see, as I say that fishermen know no boundary, right? So there is no boundary for the fishermen, right? And that is the reason why unknowingly, although in the GPS they do find the mention of the international maritime boundary line, but they hardly are using it, and they unknowingly cross the boundary, and many times intentionally also, because of the good amount of resources which are available in the Kalathivu Island and in the Park Bay, right? So Kalathivu falls on the other side of the IMBL, and fishermen often risk their lives and cross the IMBL, right? So there have been large number of imprisonments. Many fishermen are being tried by the Sri Lankan Navy and the Sri Lankan the courts, right? And seeing this, Sri Lankan government have banned their trawling, that means deep sea use of nets, etc., has been banned by the Sri Lankan government. And although Indian government is also promoting a new technique called as deep sea fishing scheme as a part of Blue Revolution scheme, right, where an alternative bottom trawling would be devised, would be innovated, and it would not, you know, destroy the maritime ecosystem or marine ecosystem. So new deep sea fishing scheme is being proposed, is under umbrella of the Blue Revolution scheme, and it would, you know, put an end to the dispute between the two countries. So still it is to be implemented, and let's see how the government would work over it. Any which ways, if I talk about the solutions or the way forward, I believe that the bottom trawling must be banned in India, and we must discontinue using it, right? So we must be prohibiting any use of the bottom trawling. Number two, the fishing practices that damage the maritime ecology must be given up. The trawlers can be used in the Odisha coast instead, right? Because we know that trawling is destroying the marine ecosystem. At the same time, it has become a conflict within the two countries, right? So therefore the government has proposed that why not use the trawlers, you know, at Odisha coast, where the waters are very deep, right? See, when the waters are student deep, it won't damage the ecosystem. Are you getting? But Park Bay has shallow waters. Shallow waters means the waters which has lesser depth, right? So whenever the trawler is being used, it would destroy the whole marine ecosystem. Are you getting? So therefore government is saying, instead of Park Bay, why not go to the Odisha coast and do the traveling, right, or the bottom trawling, because here the waters are very deep and it won't destroy the marine ecosystem. I hope you're getting my point, right? At the same time, India can transform the Park Bay from a contested territory to a common heritage, right? So why not make Park Bay a common heritage, where both the countries, Sri Lanka and India, would, you know, develop it as a part of common heritage, right? And definitely there is also a proposal that why not set up a Park Bay Authority, PBA, which would be, you know, resolving the issues between the two countries, right? So I hope you are clear with the same, right? Now moving to the next news on the screen, Chandrayaan III. Now students, the government has hinted that in the August 2022 they would be launching the next mission on moon, or on the surface of the moon, and that is called as Chandrayaan III, right? It is the third mission in the series of Chandrayaan 1, 2 and 3. We all know that Chandrayaan 2 met a sad debacle, because the lander Vikram, crashed on the site. So therefore the communication was lost, right? So therefore the government is again planning to launch the same space mission Chandrayaan III, and it is completely prepared, and in the month of August they will be launching it, right? Now the difference between Chandrayaan 2 and 3 is that Chandrayaan 3 won't be having an orbiter, right? So orbiter is a technology which is being used to orbit, to revolve around any planet or to revolve around any satellite, right? So it is not an orbiter mission. They won't be revolving around the moon to explore the other modalities. So it will not have an orbiter. So this is something which every student has to keep in their mind. So Chandrayaan 3 will be a mission repeat of Chandrayaan 2, but will only include a lander and a rover, similar to that of Chandrayaan 2, but it will not have an orbiter. So this is something which you have to keep in your mind. It will not have an orbiter, right? And we all know that Chandrayaan 2 met a last minute glitch and it crash landed on the surface, right? The lander Vikram, it crash landed on the surface, and therefore the mission actually was a failure, right? Now students, many countries have actually before sent missions to moon, right? But India in that sense is the only country or the first country to be sending the space mission to the southern part of the moon, right, to explore ice and water, right? So in this sense, India is the first country in the world to send a lunar mission, which would explore the southern part of the natural satellite, right? So therefore it is very important. And if this time it is successful, India will become the fourth country to soft land a spacecraft on the moon, right? So India will become the fourth country to soft land. Soft land is important because the Vikram lander actually crashed on the site, so therefore it was not a soft landing and the project mission failed. So India will become, if it is successful, if Chandrayaan 3 becomes successful, it will be the fourth country, right? Very important fact, students, and they may ask you the exam the questions on these lines. So USSR has done it before, United States and China. These are the three countries which have soft landed on the surface of moon. And if India also would do the same, India would become the fourth country to soft land on the surface of the moon, right? As you can see, students, there are many missions being sent on the moon, right? But no mission to the South Pole, right? So Chandrayaan 2 was also sent to the South Pole, however it failed, right? So therefore Chandrayaan 3, huge expectations are of the countrymen are with Chandrayaan 3, and we'll see what happens in the coming future, right? Now students, let us discuss about the editorials which has come in today's newspaper. Now on page 6, the editorial page, there was an article which talks about the border move which will bolster China, right? So so students, the army chief Naravane has clearly said that out of 5 or 6 friction points between India and China, see students, the boundary between India and China, right, is an imaginary boundary, and it is not a regular boundary like line of control, right, which divides India and Pakistan. So there is, because of the difficult terrain, right, there is no clear-cut boundary between India and China, and that is the reason why. And plus China also have a strategic advantage, right, of mountains. It is always located on the, Chinese army is located on the higher altitude, right? So that is the reason why it has an advantage over India, correct? Now there are many friction points over the boundary between India and China, something called as line of actual control, LAC. In the year 2020 also, students, we have seen fisticuffs between India and Chinese army, and where many Indian and Chinese army officials, army soldiers died, right? So China is not stopping its moves, and but Army Chief Naravane have clearly said that out of 5 or 6 points in Ladakh, 5 have been resolved, right? Now the points that you can see on the screen, students, the friction points between India and China are Depsang, Galwan, Hot Springs, also called as Gogra Post, north bank of Pengongso Lake, Kailash Range, and Demchok. Right. So these are the 6 friction points between India and China located in Ladakh. Right. Now we all know, students, that post the war of 1961, India lost a substantial part of Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, to China. Right. And the part that is today being under possession of China is called as Aksai Chin. Right. Now the line that divides Aksai Chin and India is called as line of actual control, and these are the regions or areas which lie on this line, right, somewhere around this line, right. So Depsang, Galwan, Hot Spring, north bank of Pengongso Lake, Kailash Range, and Demchok, right. Now out of this, we all know Galwan skirmishes in the year 2020, right, where many soldiers on both the sides, were martyred. Now Naraune has clearly said that the only friction point that is yet to be resolved is Hot Springs or PP15, right. PP15 or Hot Spring or Gogra Post is the only I would say friction point which is yet to be resolved, and remaining all the friction points have been resolved. But sadly, China do not accept this this approach or this philosophy, because still they claim Depsang, right. Let us see how. Now students, in the map you can see the line that you can see in dots is called the line of actual control, right, and this is a region which we call Ladakh, and this is definitely Jammu and Kashmir, right. And here you have Pak occupied Kashmir, right. So here you have Pak occupied Kashmir, right. So this is your LOC, right, and this line is called as LAC, line of actual control, dividing India and China. Correct. Now in Ladakh, you saw that in 2020 Galwan clashes took place, right, and now Indian government is also building roads, to gain a strategic advantage over China, and the name of the road is DBO, Daulat Beg Oldi Road, right. So it is being built by Indian government to get a strategic advantage over China, and Indian government is intending that we may also land the aircrafts in the times of war over Daulat Beg Oldi Road, so that to fight against China, right. Now you all know China has a mighty armed forces, and Indian government is building the border villages and infrastructure to actually counter China. Now as far as Depsang is concerned, it is located on a very strategically important location. Let us understand how. Now Depsang plains, students, represent a high altitude plain in the northwest portion of disputed Aksai Chin, right. So you have Aksai Chin, this is your Aksai Chin, right, and over the northwest portion of the Aksai Chin you will find Depsang plains, correct. Northwest, so northwest is this, are you getting? Northwest is to the west of the line of actual control. So if this is line of actual control, the northwest is this one, right. So Depsang in this sense lies in the territory of of India, right. However, after the 1961 war, the Depsang plain is being divided into two, right. The east part is being administered by China. The east part is being administered by China, and the west part is administered by India. I hope that you are able to get my point. So the administration is being divided into two. The eastern part is being administered by China, which lies in Aksai Chin, and the western part is being administered by India, right. And this is where the dispute lies. Now the Pak administered Gilgit-Baltistan, right. So you have Gilgit-Baltistan here, which lies in Pak occupied Kashmir, correct. So the Gilgit-Baltistan is just 80 kilometers, are you getting? Just 80 kilometers away from Depsang, correct? And the area between Depsang and Gilgit-Baltistan, you also have Siachen Glacier here, the world's highest battlefield, Siachen Glacier, where possibly you would be knowing that even the climates are below minus 40 degrees, right? I mean, a person cannot survive there, right? So therefore it is strategically located, right, just 80 kilometers away from the border, I mean away from the line of actual control or the Gilgit-Baltistan, and plus it is divided, the administration is divided into two. The eastern part is being administered by China and the western part is by India, right? And then you also have a Siachen Glacier somewhere here, right? Now to the north you have Karakoram Pass, right? Karakoram Pass is there to the north, and mind you, the tribe living in Ladakh were to use the Karakoram Pass to go to the Central Asian countries. So therefore, students, it's a very, very important area, right? Now, if Depsang falls in the hands of China, assume that Depsang falls in the hands of China, then automatically this area would be easily accessible to Pakistan, because Pakistan is a friend of China, right? Pakistan is an ally of China, and if Depsang goes to China or falls with China, then Pakistan and China would come together, would collaborate here together, and would inflict a joint attack over India, right? So that is the reason why it is very important, and it has to be properly looked upon, right? I repeat again, if Depsang falls in the hands of China, China would join hands with Pakistan, and they would mutually they would jointly attack India from Depsang. It would cut the Karakoram Pass, and then they would be always sitting on our throat, right? So therefore, students, very, very important. Let us see here. The Depsang Pass has many sectors, like the subsector north, which is a flat terrain of Depsang, right? The subsector north, very strategically very important area. The subsector north is very, very important area in Depsang. Then you have Trig Heights and Daulat Beg Oldi, DBO, right? So it is suited for the mechanized warfare, but it is located at the end of only one very long and tedious communication axis for India. Now students, China in turn has multiple roads that provide easy access to this area, right? As I said, that students, China do have a strategic advantage. They have a mountainous advantage because they are located on the higher altitude, right? And this leaves SSN, subsector north of the flat terrain of Depsang, highly vulnerable, correct? And it can be captured by PLA with just few thousands of square kilometers from Karakoram Pass to Batse. And it is high possibility if Galwan goes into the hand of China, they would get a strategic advantage over India, right? And nowhere else in Ladakh is PLA likely to gain so much territory in a single swoop, correct? SSN lies to the east of Siachen, located between Saltoro Ridge and Pakistani border, right? It is the only place, students, where a physical military collision can take place between Pakistan and China, right? So as the article is saying that because of its strategic position, Pakistan and China can strategically enter into a collusion, in fact a military collusion, and launch a two front war, right, where China and Pakistan joins hands each other, and they inflicts a two front war, a joint battle against India, and this would become real in a worst case scenario, right? So India would never want to lose Galwan to China, right? If India loses this area, it will be nearly impossible to launch a military operation to wrest back Gilgit-Baltistan from Pakistan. So if in case we loses it, it would become nearly impossible to wrest back Gilgit-Baltistan from Pakistan, which is again a contested territory, right? So therefore, students, it is a very strategically important region, Depsang Plains. And when Army Chief Naravne says that Depsang is already resolved, no, it is not resolved. It is still something which has to be looked upon, right? So I hope it is clear. So that's all from my side, students. I hope you enjoyed the session, and stay tuned, stay blessed. Good day, goodbye.